So if it's okay for us to begin, Jessica, I will go ahead and I'll now call to order the THPRD Mid-Year Budget Committee meeting for February 23rd of 2022. Jessica, can you please take roll?
Heidi Edwards.
Here.
Elizabeth Edwards.
Here.
Chris Howard.
Here.
Lee Lynn.
Here.
Suzanne Masser. Barbie Miner.
Here.
Felicita Monteblanco.
Here.
Alfredo Moreno.
Here.
Tia Ping.
Here.
Natalie Zenner.
Here.
Great. Thank you everyone for being here. And hopefully you all have received our agenda for the evening. We're on agenda item number 2. We're making fast and swift pace tonight. We need to now open the floor for nominations for Budget Committee Chair. So as part of this process, every year we have our election of officers for this committee. So I'll open the floor to nominations for the Budget Committee Chair. Are there any nominations? Well, don't all speak at once unless I can't hear you and you're still on mute. Oh, Felicita, I do see your hand.
Well, I haven't talked to this person about this, and they may not appreciate this surprise, but I do think so highly of Elizabeth Edwards ever since we got to meet her during her interview. So if she is interested, I would love to nominate her. If not, I don't know, Heidi, if you're interested in continuing. So love the awkwardness of Zoom.
Thank you, Felicita. So I hear a nomination for Elizabeth Edwards. No relation to me, Heidi Edwards. Although I'd be honored to be related to you because you're smart and we need you on this committee. So are there any other nominations? We have Elizabeth. Would you be game? And I certainly would too, if that's the case. Any other nominations for Budget Committee Chair? Okay. Is it fair for me as the current chair to make the motion that we, hearing no other nominations, I would love to nominate Elizabeth as well. And I would love to hear from our team here. If there are no other nominations, all of those in favor of Elizabeth as our new Budget Committee Chair, please say aye or raise your hand. Great, thank you. Any opposed? Put down your hands if you're... Tia, I assume yours was the aye.
Yeah, you don't get to vote twice.
I thought I put it down. I must have repicked it again.
It's okay. It's the beauty of Zoom.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I want to say welcome Elizabeth as our new Budget Committee Chair. I will also move forward just as we open the floor for nominations for a Budget Committee Secretary. Any nominations for secretary? Without hearing any, I am happy to nominate myself. It seems a little awkward and weird via Zoom, but I'm happy to serve as Budget Committee Secretary. But are there any other nominations? Anyone else interested in a nomination for Secretary? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of Heidi Edwards as Budget Committee Secretary, say aye. Or all opposed? Great, thank you. Next on the agenda, we are going to have General Manager Doug Menke to provide the General Manager's comments and go through the next couple of agenda items.
Perfect. Thank you, Heidi. And here's the additional fun awkwardness of it. So we will need Elizabeth to lead the rest of the meeting, but no worries. We will do this together, and Heidi can help us in this process. So my comments are brief this evening. I want to welcome, we have several new members, and this is really, this evening is a particular look at the district's finances for the mid-year. And of course, we do take a peek into the planning that's underway for the upcoming fiscal year. I would like to also, of course, acknowledge we have a vacancy at the Park District, CFO position. And we've been aggressively going through a process, and I'm pleased to report that we're very close to completing our hiring process. I fully expect to be finalizing details and welcoming our new CFO on board very soon. In the meantime, certainly want to thank our tremendous finance team staff, particularly the two leads within the finance and accounting side, Olivia Sujimura and Cindy Hopper, really respectively stepped up significantly and shouldered a great deal of additional responsibility during this transition period. So this evening, we'll reflect on the district's financial picture overall. I do feel a great sense of gratitude. As we all know, the pandemic has upended our operations, certainly. It's had a huge impact on our financial picture for the past 3 years. But at the same time, it's also given the district a tremendous opportunity to, in essence, use the phrase, build back better. We've had an opportunity to rethink our work, to be innovative, to be resistant, and above all else, to build back with our organizational values as a beacon, guiding our decision-making. So tonight, we will hear how, in spite of the challenges brought on by the pandemic, we've actually expanded our equity work. We're investing in our employees and in improving service delivery through updating our technology systems. And we're ensuring the health of the district's assets, that is, through our long-term planning efforts. In short, while the road ahead is not without challenges, we've weathered a great deal this past 3 years, and we're well positioned to continue to build the district back in a healthy, equitable, and sustainable way. With that, I'm going to hand over to Communications Director Holly Thompson. She's going to talk a little bit about organizational values and budget priorities driving this fiscal.
Thanks, Doug. As Doug said, my name is Holly Thompson, and I'm the Communications Director here at THPRD, and it's my honor tonight to just highlight THPRD's organizational values and the priorities that are driving the development of our next fiscal year budget. Our values are examined and looked at and thought deeply about by our Board of Directors every year. They take a look at these annually, and it really drives how we lead the organization and work as staff to make choices in our day-to-day jobs. Our values don't particularly change. We see them as enduring. There might be a nuance, there might be a slight wording change, but they really speak to who we are. They're embedded in our DNA at THPRD. And at THPRD, our values begin with leading with equity. That to us, that means all dimensions of equity, which is why you see us putting effort into all of our Access for All initiatives. We're working on racial equity, working on LGBTQ opportunities across the board. But we also recognize that we need to take a special attention and put emphasis on racial equity so as we can make sure that we're making the impact that we want to have. This past year, our Welcoming and Inclusive Committee, which is an employee-led committee, updated our inclusion and equity statement, and it really speaks to how we want to lead and how we want our work to be inclusive here at THPRD. Our second value is centered on environmental stewardship. It is our privilege to be stewards of the public land, of public facilities, of public resources, of our trails, our natural areas, and our parks. And we understand our responsibility to be an active partner on addressing climate change at a local level with our responsibility as stewards of public land. And finally, our final value is centered on community vision. We went through an extensive public engagement process a short time ago. We were recognized with an award from the national organization that determines best practices for public involvement. And we're really proud of our community engagement work. It was incredibly diverse. We spoke to audiences that we hadn't talked to before, and we have a really solid understanding of people's park and recreation priorities. And we're committed to those priorities and making sure that we're keeping our eye on those priorities as we plan for the future. Our priorities are examined by our board of directors every year. They're meant to be more tactical. These are more likely to change year to year, and they're really set in time of what's the most important issues in front of us as we think about our budget development. So as we look to preparing our next fiscal year budget, we've identified through our board's leadership our priorities for the fiscal year. And those are centered on investing in our employees and in technology to better serve the public. We know that the labor market is tough, and we've got to do all we can to hire and retain the best employees that we can. One of the best news stories for us that we have right now is that people at this time are really looking at careers that speak to their values. And the fact that we lead with our values and that we're a public service agency is a really strong value for us as an employer, and is an interesting place for people to work. And we also understand that we have some technology debt. We've got to invest in technology to keep up to pace so we can best serve the public, which is why you see continued emphasis on updating some of our internal systems. And over time, we'll be in updating some of our external public systems as well. Our second priority is centered on rebuilding programming with an emphasis on our access for all work. As Doug said in his opening comments, the pandemic has had a huge impact, and we're not where we were. And our focus has been on rebuilding programming better, stronger, and making sure every step of the way that we're building up and strengthening our financial aid offerings and making sure we're not pricing people out and we're helping people access vital services. Our final budget priority for the next fiscal year is a continuation of a priority from the year before of planning for our future natural areas, facility and trail needs, and funding resources. And this is really on point for THPRD. It is an exceptionally well-run agency that really understands how much we have to think about the future and how today what we do and what we invest in really sets the stage for what we're able to do tomorrow. And so we're constantly planning for the future and making sure we're investing and taking care of our facilities, and we're on track to serve the public. And with that, I will move on to the next slide and turn it over to the next speaker.
Hello, everyone. I am Aisha Panis, the Park District's Park Services Director, and I'm going to provide you with a brief update on our operational status at present. So right now, as you can see on the left side of the slide, we have a number of facilities that are opening. We did close down for a period of time in 2020, and we're able to open a few of our centers within the fall 2020 timeline. And then more recently, we were able to, in 2021, open up some of the facilities that had remained closed, like our Elsie Stir Center and Garden Home Recreation Center. We do continue to have some closed facilities, and you see those on the right side. Aloha, Harmon, and Sunset Swim Centers have been closed since the beginning of the pandemic, and we do hope to, in the coming budget year, find a way to maybe open those facilities. We also have Conestoga Pool that has been closed since August of last year for a construction project that is coming to a close this month. And then we have our 2 outdoor pools that are closed seasonally. And we do expect to open those up in mid to late June for summer activities. On the next slide, I wanted to mention that we've had financial challenges as a result of the pandemic, but another challenge that we face in operating our facilities at full capacity is our staffing challenges. And so, we've been able to bring back a variety of programs within our facilities, but in some cases, we're, in the example of the Nature Center, we're not really open to the public, but we are open for preschool programs, and we've been able to obtain the staffing to run those programs, but a full opening of the center has not been possible. So we're working very hard on trying to find the resources to open our centers, to offer more programs. And really it comes down in a big way to how many full-time and part-time staff vacancies we're working with right now. We rely heavily on our part-time staff, and the positions that we're really working hard to try and fill are the ones on the slide here. Our aquatics, our lifeguards have been challenging to find. We have a lot of folks that require training to get to that level that can then play the lifeguard role for us. And so having some shortages in that area has been very difficult. We also need custodial help. Our inclusion assistants are very important, our program leads, and of course, instructors for all of the different programs. So as we're able to ramp up that part-time staffing, we can offer more programs, make those more available to the community, and meet those recreational needs. As Doug mentioned, we do have full-time positions vacant as well. Our CFO position has been open, as well as several others. And so we're working to fill those positions so that we can continue the good work that the organization does. And this is just what we're doing kind of on an ongoing basis. That says nothing about what we are facing coming up this summer. So while we're planning on a spring registration right now, we're thinking to the future and starting our work to hire all of the summer staff that provide the camps and the classes and programs that we offer over the summer months. So our number of staff really does swell over the summer months. And so we are working on our ongoing hiring, but also the summer push will be beginning soon. The next slide, I wanted to close with just a note about our spring registration that is coming up this Saturday morning. And we've been working really hard to raise awareness about the registration and to provide meaningful access to our English language learners and those that participate in our financial aid program. In the single week leading up to registration, that's this Saturday, we've offered pre-registration assistance through our Centro de Bienvenida program to over 100 families. And of those 100 families, they were able to sign up for more than 350 programs and classes for spring term that they'll be able to access in the coming weeks. The program required us to find our staff resources to sit and help through conversations with the participants that came to Centro. And these conversations were wonderful. They were able to spend time, sometimes 30-40 minutes with each family group and talk through all of the different options, and not only just about classes and things that the children in the families might want to participate in, but also the adults and the different programs that they could access. And not only that, but which parks are in their neighborhoods and which trails that they could access. So that has been a really wonderful thing to do. And Centro also allows us to leverage some outside resources like the funding available through Beaverton School District's Migrant Worker Program, where we can find people access into classes that they can have paid for through the other program. And so this has been a great opportunity for us to make connections to programs, between programs and people. So beginning this Saturday at 8 a.m., we will be allowing patrons to register by phone, online. They can also walk into our open facilities, and we have activities guides for all of our different open facilities available at the centers and online so that you can build your perfect slate of activities for spring term. We also want to note that with registration this year, we will be doing a survey asking folks for their opinions on whether the current 8 a.m. on a Saturday registration time period works best, or if any other option might work better. So if you are signing up for classes, please do fill out that information and give us feedback so that we can best tailor our registration program to the needs of the community. With that, I will pause and see if there are any questions. All right. If not, then I will hand things over to Olivia Sujimura, who will be talking about our mid-year revised spending plan.
Thank you, Aisha. Good evening, board members and budget committee. I'm Olivia Sujimura, the district's budget and accounting manager. Last week, you received a packet with mid-year budget reports. Tonight, we'll be reviewing that information and providing an opportunity for public comment on the upcoming budget for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Our budget for the fiscal year that began on July 1st was adopted by the board on June 16th, 2021. Similar to last year, we're utilizing revised operating plans to manage the finances of the district. Our management team continues to work closely together and evaluate programming services to be provided by open facilities and timelines for reopening our remaining centers that are still closed, as Aisha previously referenced. This strategy will allow us to continue to be financially strong while having the flexibility to respond to current conditions. Here is a summary of our revised operating plan, completed with the most recent projections on programming, maintenance services, and other operational activities that are planned for the remainder of our fiscal year. Also, your packet included a more detailed version of the operating plan, which gives revised projections for each division, department, and center in the district. Next slide, please. These are the resources of our revenue projections for the current year as compared to the adopted budget, the August revised operating plan, and actual results for 2 prior fiscal years. As you can see, revenues are projected at a higher level when compared to the adopted budget, the August revised operating plan, and the 2 prior years. Next slide, please. So to help explain that, we're projecting that total revenue is $2.1 million higher than budget for the 21-22 fiscal year. We started the fiscal year with $10.8 million more cash than anticipated, primarily as a result of expenditure reductions made during fiscal 21. We are estimating a $6.8 million decline in program revenues due to the reduced programming. We've also estimated reductions in other revenues, such as grants, interest earnings, and rental income for the fiscal year. Next slide, please. Here are the graphs of expenditures cost to running the districts, and you can see that recreation services and park services, which includes maintenance, those are the largest part of our spending. The revised operating plan includes reductions to spending in conjunction with the reduced program offerings, as noted in the previous slides. Next slide. So in order to balance our revised operating plan, we made a series of spending changes. Reduced spending of $1.3 million on general fund capital projects is anticipated due to deferral of projects to future years or cost savings on current projects. Staffing challenges in hiring staff and lower than expected program offerings contribute to reduced spending for part-time staff of $4.3 million and full-time staff of $3.5 million. Materials and services are providing a projected reduction of $1.1 million. You'll note we've increased contingency in our revised plan due to the healthy cash carry forward from fiscal 2020-21, and this allows for funding of carry forward cash into the upcoming fiscal year. Your packet includes a section of revenue and expenditure reports for the current fiscal year to date through December 2021. We're not going to review those reports tonight in detail, but I did want to point out a trend that you will see throughout our departments in the expenditure reports. You will see an increased July spending in each department that resulted from the full funding of the district's annual pension contribution of $8.5 million in July 2021. This is similar to the prior year, and it is a shift of timing and spending, which evens out over the fiscal year and does not result in an overall increase in spending on an annual basis. Are there any questions on the current revised operating plan? Okay, with that, I will hand the presentation over to Aisha.
Olivia, I see that we have a question or a hand raised from Elizabeth.
Hey, Olivia.
Hi.
I just wanted to I think it'd be helpful to give the 30,000 foot summation. And it just looks like even though we're down in some areas, we're up more in other areas, and overall, the health of the budget looks very strong. Is that a fair summation?
I think so. Again, the change that we see in resources really is attributed to the healthy cash carry forward from fiscal 21 into this current fiscal year. I mean, you'll note that we do have reductions in the other resources, programming, other revenues, et cetera. Also counterbalance with reductions in expenditures. So, you know, we kind of see that trending downward with each other.
Yeah, I know it's been a weird couple of years trying to make projections looking ahead. I mean, are there any concerns or red flags you have going forward, or do you sort of tentatively feel like things will continue to level out?
I do feel that they will level out. There's no initial concerns that I would have just in regards to operations. As I mentioned, you know, management team, they are working very closely and taking a look at current conditions to find out, you know, the right programming to offer for our patrons.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, then I will turn it over to Aisha for capital updates.
All right. So we have been able to make really good progress through our general fund capital projects this year. We have completed nearly all of the carry forward projects that moved from last year's budget into this year's budget. And we've also finished a number of our smaller scale projects, such as our equipment replacements, lighting upgrades, and several paving projects across the district, some of which you see on the screen here. On the next slide, I am excited to share that the district's most significant capital project in many years is nearing completion. The Conestoga Pool Renovation project represented about $2.1 million of our capital program this year and is a major improvement to the natatorium at Conestoga. The project includes better pool access, improved lighting, on-deck showers, resurfacing of both pool tanks, a new pool slide and new deck, and ADA accessible individual changing rooms. We have had a number of pandemic-related delays due to supply chain issues and workforce shortages, but we are confident we will be able to complete this project and reach substantial completion this month. On the next slide, I will talk a little bit about our system development charges. And with these SDC funded projects, we're pleased to share that we have been scheduled to complete construction at Potivar Park, which you see on the slide here. This park is going to have an open grass area, a multi-level play area, and a multi-sport sports court. We've also completed a project to add netting at the Cedar Hills Park, and we've closed out our projects at Pio Pio and a segment of the Bethany Creek Trail. Staff have had 2 projects in for design and permitting and completed 2 concept plans and have several concept plans under development. Additionally, we are also at varying levels of progress working with developers on over 20 future park sites and trail locations across the district. And these are sites that would be built by the developers, but subsequently taken over and owned or maintained, or both, by THPRD. On the next slide, I will share a little bit about our bond fund. The image that you see on the screen shows all of our different bond funded programs from the 2008 bond. And while I don't expect you to see all the detail listed on this slide, I will share that in the category of acquisitions, and that was for neighborhood parks, community program sites, or community center sites, we have reached completion on the acquisition side of our work. On the restoration side, we still have some natural area restorations that are underway and in process and won't conclude for the next couple of years. And then finally, on the construction side, we are reaching the very end of that. So on the next slide, you will see a couple of those projects. On the left side of this slide is the Mountain View Champions Park multi-purpose sports court and parking lot expansion. So this is in the southeast corner of that park, opposite from the school, and we're excited about the work that's going there. So that is underway and construction will begin soon there. And we also have the Cedar Hills Park redevelopment closeout that is concluding soon. And so with that closes out the construction phase of our bond. So I will go to the next slide. and see if there's any questions about any of our capital projects. All right. With that, then I will turn it back to Doug Menke.
Great, thank you. Well, we got into a little bit of budget strategy early on, and I wanted to clearly call out, we make a lot of references to full appropriation, and yet at the same time placing ourselves on what we call a revised operating plan, which is what Olivia had reviewed with you all on mid-year. So it's I've had to answer the question many times, well, how's the budget going? I said, the excellent news for our mid-year report is we're well under full appropriations. The challenging side is the revenue, of course, has fallen as dramatic. So it's a practical approach, understandably. We have done this now for 2 fiscals. That is respectfully request to the Budget Committee full appropriations, acknowledging all along that we are going to place ourselves July 1 on a restrained fiscal operation, an operating plan that will reflect where we are operationally. Uniquely, this coming fiscal, it is our hope that you'll see a more revived approach, because we are, we actually have known facilities open, and we appear to be headed in a more positive direction, and aspirationally, getting all of our facilities operational. It could be a limited schedules, we don't get to control the dynamics of the pandemic, but we're hope we're moving in a better direction. Part of that process of the revised plan is really monitoring it, as Olivia noted, very closely. And that's taken a lot of staff, a lot of extra work by the finance department to, in essence, create another budget on top of the full appropriations budget. But we think it's the responsible way to acknowledge that we don't get clear identification of all the problems ahead of us. That has been one of the learning lessons. And when we manage it closely, we have the capability and responsibility to pivot and move. And we hold ourselves to a quarterly report back to the Board of Directors, which has been ongoing for 2 years now. And it seems to work very well, that it gives us that opportunity to have dialogue, to really better understand how we're progressing on operations. And with that, so that's a little overview on budget strategy. With that, Olivia will be up next, kind of giving that sneak peek as we move forward with projections for 22-23.
Thanks, Doug. So you'll see on this slide an overview of the projected resources and expenditures for our upcoming fiscal 2022-23 budget. The adopted budget column on the left is our current fiscal year budget. The middle column shows the revised operating plan we reviewed earlier, and the right column is our initial projections of resources and expenditures for the proposed budget. Note that the projection does not yet include capital projects to be carried forward from fiscal 21-22 and grant-funded activity. Those amounts will be added to the proposed budget as we formalize our expectations in the upcoming weeks. Cash on hand is the first item noted there under resources, and that is our projected general fund cash carry forward and the balance of our capital replacement reserve of $2 million. The next line, property tax revenues, are projected starting with our tax levy for the current fiscal year, adding 3% for assessed value changes under the allowable under Oregon law, and an additional 0.3% for property growth within the district. We continue to assume a 95% first-year collection rate for property taxes in our projections. Program resources are being projected at levels consistent with the current fiscal year adopted budget. We're not anticipating any inflationary adjustments to program revenues for our budget this year. Managers will be completing further analysis of planned programs and will adjust these estimates accordingly as the proposed budget is developed. Other resources in these initial projections include interest, miscellaneous revenues, and rental income. We're continuing to evaluate our projected grant resources and will add those in to the proposed budget. For the expenditure section, personnel services includes staffing at normal operational levels and takes into consideration our contracted pay increases for our represented employees and a 6% increase for part-time staff. Additionally, we've included the annual pension funding amount, which is part of the pension funding policy adopted by the board in January 2021. Materials and services includes rate increases for utilities and other inflationary adjustments. Debt service expense reflects principal and interest payments due on full faith and credit borrowings for the district. Contingency includes our $2 million capital replacement reserve and $2.5 million contingency appropriation that aligns with our board policy in DCP 6 for minimum fund balances and reserves. Capital outlay does not include capital carry-forward spending or grant-funded capital and may be adjusted based on further evaluation of our fiscal 23 spending priorities. So are there any questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you. I jumped ahead. You answered all my questions already.
No worries.
Where are we at in the agenda? Are we at point number 4? Agenda item number 4?
No, we're actually, we've moved along quite well. We're actually to public comment. at
Public
this
comment.
point.
I meant to say 9, not 4. It's
Okay,
a
good.
1X. I was reading that as a 1V. So for our chair, Elizabeth, I don't know if you have the agenda play sheet.
I have the script.
All right. So we're at agenda item number 9, public comment.
Okay. Now is the time we set aside in our agenda for public comment. I understand that no public comment has been received for this evening's meeting. Could staff please confirm this?
That's correct.
Okay, fabulous. Then we will, oh, I see a hand. Leland?
Hi, this is Lee. I just have a quick question. Can you kind of go into about detail on how you come up with the expenditure assumptions for 6% of personnel and 7% on the material and services?
Doug or Olivia, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Olivia, which graph we're referencing.
I think you have in the last
on the
page you have the
projected?
meeting
Oh.
material where it talks about the assumptions for expenditures.
Yes. So for you mentioned part-time?
I think it listed 6% for personnel services and then 7% for materials and services.
So for personnel, that is correct. For part-time, we did incorporate a 6% increase for part-time salaries. And, that was to help the labor market and staffing challenges that we're experiencing. Now, for materials and services, I didn't actually mention a rate increase there, just that we did include specific rate increases relating to utilities, as that is something that occurs year over year.
Yeah, and certainly we should acknowledge, again, these are target numbers. These numbers will float in the next couple weeks here, and we'll settle in and provide a little more detail, of course, in April at your work session as we express, what we believe is ahead of us. And you're going to find nothing shocking on the sneak preview, and that is that, as Olivia noted, we're going to intentionally carry a fairly, for the Park District anyway, a fairly significant contingency moving forward. That will be our proposed budget. That contingency is in part the normal, which is 2.5 a year million, but the excess of that, and there will be substantially excess to that, is really to enable several items to take place. And I'm getting very practiced at this because at times, of course, with the pandemic in front of us still, is that uncertainty of where are we going to go. And so we believe it's wise to have additional assurance in terms of resources lined up in the contingency side, that our ability to go after those resources, should something dramatic happen again with the pandemic, is to go right back to the board of directors and make our request. And because only the board of directors can go after contingency funds. So in addition to that, two other large parameters we have in front of us, we are in labor negotiations currently. And the outcome of that, we will not know in time. So thus, having funds within contingency to manage that, we will have a reasonable percentage increase identified in the actual appropriation side, which we'll articulate at your April meeting. As well, we will have a inflationary increase for materials and services as well. So we'll have more depth into that. But the last item that is, like many things yet unknown, we have an obligation to perform a class comp study, which has been being performed right now by outside consultants. We won't have those recommendations certainly in time to identify the increases that may occur. I reference this increases because in my working career, I've seen a few class comp studies. I have not seen one that cost you less. Certainly there will be some that maybe, some position areas that will be frozen and so forth, but in general, it's an increase. And again, it will speak to our ability to hire and retain, and which is a critical component of, as we move forward, we are all, and when I say all, it's like every business and every operation out there is trying to find the foothold, the edge, to ensure that you can hire and keep quality people. That's probably a little more of a response than needed, but.
All right, thank you. I was just curious because I was going through our budget at work, and I think one of the assumptions for contract increase was also 6%. So I was wondering if you referenced the same index.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move us along to agenda item 10, date of budget committee work session. The budget committee work session has been scheduled for Wednesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. and will again be a virtual meeting. I don't know if there's anything else to say about that one. And then our final item is adjournment. So seeing no hands or other comments, and there being no further business this evening, the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Nice work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for stepping in.
We figured it out. Thanks for the assist.
Yeah. I've needed that many times, as you could tell. I thought we were on agenda item number 5 because I can't read well. So